Plus, combined with our antidepressant drug, we hope will have improved outcomes for the people who are at a greater risk of relapse and who are struggling with depression. And that's something that I just think is so interesting. When you take a challenge or a topic like this and you can see it coming through even across consumer and then across sector, there's a whole host of different pockets of work that are interlinked across the organisation. I mean, that's one of the strengths and one of the really exciting things about J&J for me, that we are probably one of the biggest or broadly based healthcare companies in the world, and being able to come at these really broad health concerns from very different points of view within one company, it's really interesting.
And it must really give you a sense of how all these different areas connect up, respond, relate to each other, and how consequently you can have a sense of how to improve people's lives in a more effective way.
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk to you a little bit more about some of our interest spaces, if that's going to be helpful for you in the way that you'd like to structure things.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked a little bit about the fact that we have self-care and we have skin health as two major areas of our business. I can talk a little bit about, so for example, in pain, we're looking at anything from novel delivery forms to non-medicated solutions through to maybe even chronic pain solutions. And that's both in new types of therapy and also in new types of tools. So anything that is a connected at-home diagnostic or maybe a digital therapeutic or personalised treatments are all relevant in that space as much as they are across the rest of our self-care organisation. So that's also true in allergy, where we're looking at, for example, paediatric allergy is a topic of interest for us in that space. But so are at-home diagnostics and digital biomarkers, digital therapeutics, and another area that we haven't spoken about much actually is women's health. So we're looking at high efficacy therapies for the menopause and for the specific health concerns that come for women around age 40 plus. And so, things in the space of metabolic energy, mental wellness, migraine and menopause, as I said, are sort of a relatively newer focus area for us, but a really important one within self-care.
Mm-hmm. And how about the work you're doing in terms of digital therapeutics? It's a fascinating area with it's been evolving very quickly over the last few years, I think, but still, of course, has an awful lot more room to grow, to evolve. What sort of how are you involved with digital therapeutics?
So digital therapeutics, you're right, it's a really interesting area and it's been developing very, very quickly, even if it has got a little way to go yet. Personally, I went to some of the first digital therapeutics conferences when I was last in this role, and was just really fascinated by the community of people who are developing this new solution for consumers. Many of them are consumers or patients themselves. There's a whole host of different spaces within the business that this is relevant for. So smoking cessation is one of the first examples that comes to mind, because there's a huge behavioural element to smoking. Obviously there is the physical craving aspect of quitting smoking, but there's also a whole host of behaviours and behaviour change that needs to happen as well. There's also a really important space within pain for digital therapeutics, because obviously there is a very physical element of pain and experiencing and managing pain, but there's also a huge mental element of how you manage and experience pain, and what that looks like for different subpopulations and how we could best deliver that kind of solution, I think is a really big question for the industry. You can also take the same principle and apply it to digestive health. We spoke earlier that stress is a major trigger for digestive health episodes. If you can help consumers better manage their stress and their lifestyle and their mental wellness or their mental environment, then you help them manage their digestive health challenges. And actually, you can even apply it outside of self-care. If you're looking at skin health, there's a whole bunch of different tools that are useful when it comes to managing your skin health, whether that's something like, looking at your skin barrier when it comes to helping manage your eczema, whether that is something to do with mapping the different areas of your skin, moving away from digital therapeutics into digital tools here, mapping different areas of your skin and tracking the improvements as you are using the different skincare products. And a piece that I just think is really interesting in that skin health element is, how can we make sure that we are being really inclusive in our approach. How do we make sure that we are incorporating a whole variety of different skin tones in development and in commercialization of these products to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all the different kinds of consumers that we have within things like managing acne and hyperpigmentation. And digital tools can be a really good adjunctive to your products in order to help improve and manage your outcomes in something like managing acne recovery and hyperpigmentation, for example.
So in terms of either this particular article or the work you're doing, do you think we should include a nod to the pandemic situation and is it appropriate, I suppose, to include that, or are you doing any work in that area, or is it something you would like us to include more generally in terms of we know it's impacting and aggravating a lot of the issues that you mentioned, whether that's mental health and a lot of the other things that go around there?
I don't think it is a major focus for us in that we're not, for example, developing a vaccine, and that's a big talking point, for example, but obviously it has a huge impact on all of our categories, and it has a huge impact on the way that people are managing their health, the way that they're approaching, well, they're designing their lives differently coming out the other end of this pandemic. So, making sure that we are meeting and keeping up and exceeding our consumers' needs in, if you want to use the phrase, the new normal, of how to make sure that people can best take care of themselves when it comes to coughs and colds and flu, and how do you make sure that we're meeting people's new skincare needs? How do we make sure that we are helping people quit smoking more than ever, because that is a risk factor in this, whole pandemic situation. There's an impact across, I would say, probably our entire business from the pandemic. But I think it is our job and our pleasure as a company really to help consumers manage that. People have been taking their own health into their own hands even more when they've been in the pandemic situation and trying to really proactively look after themselves and their families. And the fact that we get to help consumers do that, at least for me, that's a huge purpose driver behind what I do.
Okay, great. Well, like I said, I think we've gone through all of my questions. Emma, anything, and Heather, anything else you wanted to mention? I think that's going to give us a great base for the article.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's a really nice mixture of, some background, some history, some, very specific facts that you can communicate, and then some nice stories to wrap up around it, so that kind of, the human side of it very much comes through, and it's not kind of corporate speak, that it's something that your readers will be interested in learning about, and something that we want them to hear about. So yeah, I think Heather's covered it really well. Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely.
Great. In that case, thanks very much for your time, both of you. It's been really, really useful, but also very interesting.
Super. Wow. So what's the timing on the next steps now? Will you get a draft to us, and then we'll kind of look at the text, and then we can work on layout afterwards? How does that work?
So what we'll do is we'll send you over a storyboard, a plan of the article first, so that you know how we're planning to frame it. We can go back and forth a couple of times if need be, just to make sure we've included the right points and within that. Once that's signed off, and it's really useful at that point to get anyone who's signing off the final article to get a green light from them for the storyboard as well, just so there's no nasty surprises, anyone coming in towards the end of the process wondering why the article's been written in a certain way. Once the storyboard's signed off, we'll move to provide you with a written draft of the article. Once that's signed off, we can work on layout. Excuse me, work on layout as well.
That's really great. Okay, super. Have a lovely evening, and we'll connect later this week, Heather.
Lovely. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.